The year was 1963. While America dreamt of space and prosperity in the whirring crucible of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Ford Motor Company was dreaming of something else: absolute, unyielding domination. They poured millions into a revolutionary engine, a masterpiece of engineering designed to conquer the Indy 500. But what they unleashed was more than just a powerful motor. It was a beast, capable of unimaginable speed and unspeakable tragedy. This is the untold story of the Ford 255 V8 Indy engine, the motor that promised glory, delivered terror, and left a trail of destruction that corporate history tried desperately to bury. The truth will set you free, but first, it might just make your blood run cold. It was 255 cubic inches of pure, unadulterated ambition. Ford, a sleeping giant in open-wheel racing, was ready to wake up and unleash hell on the Indy 500. For years, the venerable Offenhauser engine, a design largely unchanged since the 1930s, had reigned supreme. Its reliable, if somewhat antiquated, four-cylinder design had racked up an astonishing 27 Indy 500 victories. But Ford had a secret weapon, spearheaded by Benson Ford, Ed Lundy, and a brilliant engineer named Fred Miller. They envisioned a purpose-built, dual-overhead cam, DOHC V8, a radical departure for the brickyard. Their partnership with legendary British constructor Colin Chapman and his revolutionary Lotus 29 chassis was the first shot fired. This wasn't just an engine, it was an audacious declaration of war. Ford's executives weren't just seeking a win, they sought to redefine American motorsport. They wanted a statement, a technological marvel that would prove Ford was not just a car company, but an engineering powerhouse. And they poured an estimated $1.5 million, equivalent to over $14 million today, into its development in those initial years alone. This was a blank check for victory. What made the Ford 255 V8 so revolutionary, so dangerous? The specifications read like a blueprint for mechanical anarchy. Unlike the pushrod designs prevalent in American V8s, the 255, also known as the Ford Quad Cam or Indy engine, featured dual overhead camshafts per bank, operating 4 valves per cylinder. This DOHC 4-valve per cylinder configuration was practically unheard of in American racing engines of the time. Consider this. Most contemporary engines were redlining at 6,000, 7,000 RPM. The Ford 255 V8 was designed to scream to 8,000 RPM, and later pushing towards 9,000 RPM. Initially, it produced around 375 horsepower, HP, in 1963, quickly escalating to 425 HP in 1964, and eventually reaching over 500 HP by the late 1960s. Its bore and stroke were 3.76 inches by 2.87 inches, giving it an over-square design, ideal for high RPM. It was fueled by multiple Weber carburetors, later transitioning to mechanical fuel injection, precisely delivering fuel with military precision. The sound? Not just an exhaust note, it was a high-pitched wail, a mechanical shriek that promised speed and struck fear into the hearts of competitors. But this immense power came at a cost. The engine was essentially a bomb, built to win races at the absolute edge of mechanical possibility. Every component, from its lightweight aluminum block and heads to its forged steel crankshaft and connecting rods, was stressed to its limit. The sheer forces generated by such high RPM and horsepower put incredible strain on every part. This wasn't just advanced engineering. It was a high-stakes gamble. The stage was set for the 1963 Indy 500. Ford, with its revolutionary engine, backed the legendary Jim Clark in the sleek rear-engined Lotus. This was a fundamental shift. For decades, front-engine roadsters dominated. The combination of Ford's DOHC V8 and the light, agile Lotus was a revelation. Clark, in his rookie year, led 28 laps and only lost the race due to a controversial black flag for an oil leak, which many, including Clark and Chapman, believed was minor and not a safety issue. Parnelli Jones, driving the old Calhoun Roadster, narrowly took the win, but the message was clear. The Ford 255 V8 was here, and it was a force to be reckoned with. However, the 1963 race also showed the engine's brutal side. While the Offenhauser was a sturdy workhorse, the Ford V8, with its high revs and exotic design, suffered from teething issues. Reliability was a major concern. Components, especially valve-train parts and connecting rods, were under immense stress. There were whispers in the garages, too much power for the track, a ticking time bomb. These weren't just racer superstitions, they were ominous foreshadowings of the tragedy to come. By 1965, Ford's investment paid off in spectacular fashion. Jim Clark, once again in a Lotus Ford, utterly dominated the Indy 500, leading 190 out of 200 laps and winning by a massive 2-minute lead, the first rear-engined car to win the Indy 500. It was a technological triumph, a complete dismantling of the old guard. Ford had arrived. The Ford 255 V8 went on to power an unprecedented string of victories, winning the Indy 500 a staggering 6 consecutive times from 1965 to 1970. Drivers like Graham Hill, 1966, A.J. Foyt, 1967, Bobby Unser, 1968, Mario Andretti, 1969, and Al Unser, 1970, all hoisted the Borg-Warner Trophy with Ford power behind them. This engine wasn't just competitive, it was dictatorial. But behind the gleaming trophies and champagne showers, a darker truth emerged. The raw power and revolutionary design of the Ford 255 V8 came at a terrifying cost. The very features that made it so fast and also made it inherently dangerous. At screaming RPMs, the slightest mechanical imperfection could turn into catastrophic failure. And when a 500 HP engine explodes at over 200 mph, the consequences are horrific. What was the shocking truth behind the Ford 255's deadly reputation? It wasn't a single flaw, but a confluence of extreme design, relentless pressure for performance, and the brutal reality of racing at the absolute limit. Engineers pushed the materials to their breaking point. Connecting rods, stressed by enormous forces, were prone to failure. The valvetrain, with its complex DOHC setup, could disintegrate at sustained high RPM, sending shrapnel through the engine bay and often into the driver's compartment. Oil scavenging and lubrication systems, while advanced for their time, struggled to keep up with the extreme G-forces and temperatures generated. Consider these chilling facts. 1964 Indy 500. Practice, Dave McDonald, in a Ford-powered Cooper, crashed fatally after what was reported as a steering failure. But speculation persists about the extreme stresses the new engines put on all car components. 1966, Indy 500. 3 drivers were involved in separate incidents during practice, and qualifying attributed to mechanical failures, though not all explicitly engine-related. The Ford engines were pushing the limits of everything on the car. 1968 Indy 500 practice, Joe Leonard's turbine car, which used a modified Ford engine core, had a dramatic incident where debris from the engine pierced the driver's compartment, narrowly missing him. 1969 Indy 500 qualifying, Art Pollard crashed fatally in his Ford-powered Lotus. While the official cause was suspension failure, the intense vibrations and stresses generated by the high-revving Ford engine were a contributing factor, shaking components to their breaking point. Countless near misses. For every major incident, there were dozens of near misses, blown engines that showered the track with oil, and spectacular explosions that miraculously didn't result in tragedy. Drivers constantly reported feeling the engine trying to tear itself apart beneath them. The problem wasn't necessarily that the engine was poorly designed. It was that it was too good for the metallurgy and safety standards of the time. It produced power that the rest of the car, and sometimes the drivers themselves, couldn't safely handle. Ford, driven by the insatiable desire to win, pushed the envelope beyond what was safe. As the body count and close calls mounted, the racing community and regulatory bodies took notice. Ford, acutely aware of the negative press and potential liability, began to shift its public narrative. Internal memos, now surfacing through historical archives, reveal a corporate concern not just for performance, but for mitigating the reputational risk associated with the engine failures and crashes. The response from the United States Auto Club, USAC, the IndyCar sanctioning body, was swift and drastic. While they never officially singled out the Ford 255 as deadly, the rule changes implemented after 1969 were a direct response to the escalating speeds and dangers. 1970, USAC mandated a reduction in engine displacement for DOHC engines from 255 cubic inches to 161 cubic inches, 2.65 liters, for turbocharged engines, and 209 cubic inches, 3.43 liters, for naturally aspirated engines. This was a direct blow to the naturally aspirated 255 V8. Turbocharging. The new rules effectively ushered in the era of turbocharging, allowing smaller displacement engines to achieve similar power levels more reliably and, critically, at lower, safer RPMs. The high-revving, naturally aspirated Ford 255 V8, designed for raw atmospheric power, was effectively legislated out of existence. Ford, with its eye on continued dominance, quickly adapted to the new turbocharged era, building new, smaller displacement turbocharged engines. The 255 V8, a symbol of both triumph and terror, was quietly phased out. Its legacy, however, was shrouded in an unofficial corporate silence. You wouldn't find Ford proudly showcasing the history of its deadly engine. They wanted to move forward, away from the whispers of danger and tragedy. Though officially extinct from Indy racing by the early 1970s, the ghost of the Ford 255 V8 still haunts the world of high-performance engines. Its engineering DNA, its radical approach to power delivery, lives on in ways both obvious and unexpected. Look at today's high-performance V8s, like the Ford Coyote engine found in the Mustang GT. Its DOHC 4-valve per cylinder design is a direct descendant of the principles pioneered by the 255. Modern IndyCar engines, though turbocharged and much smaller, now 2.2-liter V6s producing over 708 p, still operate with many of the DOHC principles established by that Ford engine. The 255 proved that a purpose-built, high-revving DOHC V8 could redefine performance. It forced competitors to innovate or be left behind. It pushed the boundaries of metallurgy and material science. It was a brutal, uncompromising teacher. Today, pristine examples of the Ford 255 V8 are incredibly rare, fetching astronomical prices at auction. A complete, original engine block with DOHC heads can command upwards of $50,000 to $100,000, with full operational engines reaching much higher. Collectors aren't just buying a piece of metal, they're buying a piece of automotive history, a testament to Ford's audacious ambition, and a stark reminder of the deadly price of pushing limits too far. The Ford 255 V8 Indy engine was a paradox. It was a masterpiece of engineering that delivered unprecedented victories, shattering records and rewriting the rulebook of American motorsport. Yet it was also a flawed, violent beast, responsible for putting drivers in unimaginable danger, contributing to tragic accidents, and forcing a fundamental reevaluation of racing safety. Ford wanted to win. They did. But the shocking truth is that their relentless pursuit of victory came with a dark underside, a trail of mechanical failures and human cost that the glossy brochures and victory celebrations rarely acknowledge. It wasn't just an engine, it was a symbol of unchecked ambition, a raw, screaming reminder that sometimes the pursuit of greatness can lead to a deadly price. Was the Ford 255 V8 the most dangerous engine ever to race at Indy, or simply a necessary, brutal step in the evolution of speed? Comment below and hit subscribe. Next week, we'll dive into the terrifying story of the infamous Porsche 917 and its deadly reputation at Le Mans. This is Channel Uncovering the Truths Behind Automotive Legends. Catch you next time.